I say hello from me, Tim Coutts, to the attendees of the conference. It's a sobering thought to realize that it's 30 years since we held the first conference in Copper Mountain in Colorado. In answer to your question about how it started, Alejandro, my group at the National Renewable Energy Lab had been working on 3.5 semiconductors for quite some time. And then one day I remember quite well, John bringing a visitor from another Department of Energy laboratory to NREL. And he was very interested in having us make lower band gap solar cells, or what turned out to be TPV cells, under a subcontract to them. And that's actually how we got started. The other lab actually funded us quite separately to work on TPV. And that's what got the activities underway. But that would have been more than 30 years ago, probably more like 32 or 33 years, I should think. And then it occurred to me after a while working on this that it would be a good idea to have a meeting to pull all aspects of TPV together, not just the work on devices, the actual cells themselves, but other aspects. For example, the whole business of thermal management in TPV systems. And so we had a number of specialists outside our immediate area, people who were interested in the properties of the emitters, for example, the radiant surface. I remember we had somebody called Bob Nelson, who was a specialist in selective emitters, which was a very new concept to us at that time. We were assuming that everything was broadband radiation, whereas of course that need not necessarily be the case. And I remember writing a proposal, an internal proposal at NREL for funding, and succeeded in getting quite a small amount of money, but enough to get this workshop / conference underway, which we held at Copper Mountain, as I said. John was kind enough to share the responsibilities of organizing the conference with me and acted as my co-chair. And it turned out, if memory serves me correctly, we had about 120 people at the conference. So by any measure, it was more successful than I could possibly have expected. And I think everybody left feeling that the conference had been very well worthwhile. And eventually that encouraged me to organize a second and third and so on. John took over for the third conference, John, was it? I think you chaired the third one.
I think so.
Yeah.
The distinction between chair and co-chair was pretty fluid.
Yes, yeah. Yes, it usually amounted to going somewhere nice for lunch and having a glass of wine.
Selection of Copper Mountain, which is a beautiful resort in the mountains just west of Colorado, was largely my choice because I'd just worked with scientist at NREL Bhushan Sapori to host the Silicon Materials Workshop in the same location there, and we found that attendees were a little bit more excited to attend because of the beauty of that particular location and the opportunity to take a little bit of a hike and get out of the pressures of a regular conference. So that was a good start.
I can tell you one memory from the Copper Mountain conference, and that happened to occur when the comet Shoemaker-Levy-Shoemaker was approaching the planet Jupiter, and it was beginning to break up. And one of our colleagues from NREL brought his telescope along. He was an amateur astronomer. And so we were able to go out one quite dark night during the days of the conference and actually see the fragments of the comet breaking up as it approached Jupiter and getting broken up by the gravitational force of Jupiter. So that's nothing to do with TPV whatsoever, but it is one of my outstanding memories.
One of the speakers at the conference was from the DARPA program, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency in the U.S. And in the early 90s, they were looking at all sorts of novel energy conversion technologies for what they called energy harvesting. I mean, it ranged from having air pockets in the foot of boots and being able to capture some energy by the air squeezing from the heel to the toe, to more extreme ideas such as, well, thermophotovoltaics. So there were a whole range of early entry products that just seemed to be very obvious business opportunities that would generate vast amounts of revenue. And well, so there was a lot of enthusiasm at that time.
One application that had been realized back then was due to Lou Fraz and his colleagues from his company in Seattle, JX Crystals. And they had developed a system called the Midnight Sun, which enabled light to be provided without any further electricity being supplied. And the idea was that these things would be used on boats, on sailing vessels, on camper vans, that kind of thing. Another application was the TPV powered car. It wasn't the first conference, but there was one of the first 2 or 3 conferences where he had actually driven his car from Seattle to Denver, where the conference was being held. The second or the third conference, I should think. And that was quite an uplifting sight. And he would actually take the attendees who wanted to go for a ride in this thing around the streets of Denver during the lunch times of the conference. So that was all quite interesting. Well, I would simply encourage people, assuming that it's viable for them to continue doing research on TPV, to continue because it's such an interesting subject, even if putting a TPV system together would be very difficult, or still remains very difficult. I think it's a well worthwhile topic, and I would encourage people to continue development, not just of the conversion devices, the semiconductor devices themselves, but also to get involved as soon as they can in the development of full systems and learn about the problems that there are in putting a TPV system together.
I've been retired now for 7 years, not quite as long as Tim, but still go to some of the photovoltaic conferences and things, and keep my hand in a little bit of what's going on. It looks like a very exciting conference, and I hope that particularly seeing the number of industry participants there is something we had imagined, and it would be great to see more about how they're doing in advancing towards commercialization.